Of course, there were plenty of old people in the past, dotted around. It's just that today, more of us have a much greater chance of getting there. Imagine you gathered every single person from 14th century England and asked them to stand in a line, in order of their age. The A1 would be a good place to do it, then known as the Great North Road. "Youngest in Edinburgh, oldest in London, please," you'd shout on the megaphone. It would be a nightmare task, with all sorts of argy-bargy and confusion. Where do I stand? All I know is I was born on St. Stephen's Day, 203 moons past. When everyone was roughly in order, if you picked the person standing in the middle, somewhere near Harrogate, they would be 21 years old. So, in the 14th century, if you were 22, you'd be older than half the population. If you repeated the process in the late 16th century, the chosen Harrogate specimen would be 22 years old. In the 19th century, they would be 25. So, it's a young crowd, and that doesn't massively change for hundreds of years. At the start of the medieval period, the life expectancy was around 30. In 1765, that number was 39. In 1900, when my great-grandmother was born, it was 47. It's only in the 20th century that things really picked up. And in 2024, the average life expectancy in the UK was 81. With less chance of living longer, it's no surprise people were eager to get on with things while they were still around. In the medieval period, betrothals were often arranged when the children were toddlers. Girls would be married at 12 years old and boys at 14. Many women in their mid-20s, if they were still alive, might have been married for about 10 years and could have given birth 5 or 6 times. Some might be widowed, their husbands having perhaps died in battle, and married for the second time. Medieval boys were expected to work at 7 and considered old enough to determine between right and wrong, as they could be hanged for theft. Some were given immense responsibility. At the Battle of Crecy in 1346, 16-year-old Prince Edward commanded some 800 men-at-arms, 2,000 archers, and 1,000 footmen. Later, in the 18th century, boys routinely joined ships of the Royal Navy around the age of 12. The concepts of youth and old age were seen differently than they are today. In the 14th century, a man was considered at his prime in his 20s, mature in his 30s, and growing old in his 40s. Women had even less time. Chaucer considered a 30-year-old woman to be winter forage. I look forward to it. In the time of Elizabeth I, the composer Thomas Whithorn felt turning 40 marked the first part of the old man's age. In 1813, Lord Byron despaired at turning 25. At 25, when the better part of life is over, one should be something. And what am I? He had a point. Byron died at 36, and his fellow romantic poet John Keats died at 25. The big change came when we stopped relying on children to bring in an income. To eliminate child labour, the 1880 Education Act made school attendance compulsory in England and Wales between the ages of 5 and 10. It was hard to enforce at first. Attendance fell short by 82%. In 1901, there were still 300,000 children working outside school hours, their families not able to forgo the extra income. But as society became more accommodating, attendance improved. Over the years, the minimum leaving age has gone steadily up. 11 years old in 1893, 12 in 1899, 14 in 1918, 15 in 1947, and 16 in 1972, where it remains to this day across the UK. A new group was emerging in British society, the teenager. These young people who, instead of being smaller versions of their parents, had a new identity between a child and an adult. In 1954, the teenage experience was